for the Italian body. This is a mere body of woman. Rastaman is Guys say I take it to talk. Yeah, go take it China.
When you come in when Siam Kakra, men Casapi. Damn, but I'm there. Bakan Papa Kakra and William Fancy. At long last,
the best online radio in Dallas Fort Worth. Africa Media 247.
And that's Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. And yet again, I want to take the opportunity to thank the chiefs and people of this country, the youth, farmers, the women who have so nobly fought and won this battle. Also, I want to thank the valiant servicemen who have so cooperated with me in this task of freeing our country from foreign rule and imperialism. And as I pointed out at the conference at Sorbonne, I made it quite clear that from now on today, we must change our attitudes, our minds. We must realize that from now on, we are no more a colonial, but a free and independent people. But also, as I pointed out, that also entails hard work. I am depending upon the millions of the country, the chiefs and people, to help me to reshape the future of this country. We are prepared to build it up and make it a nation that will be respected by every other nation in the world. No, we are going to have difficult beginnings. But again, I am relying upon your support. I'm relying upon your hard work. Seeing you in thousands, it doesn't matter how far my eye goes. I can see that you are here in your millions. And my last warning to you is that you also stand firm behind us so that we can prove to the world that when the African is given a chance, he can show to the world that he's somebody.
Africa Media 24/7.
We are not waiting. We shall no more go back to sleep anymore. Today, from now on, there is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the man is capable of managing his own affairs. We are going to demonstrate to the world, other nations, young as we are, that we are prepared to lay our own foundation. As I said in the assembly just minutes ago, I made a point that we are going to see that we create our own African personality again. It's the only way in which we can show the world that we are ready for our own battle. But today, may I call upon you all that at this day, let us all remember that nothing in the world can be done unless it's had the purpose and support of God. We have done battle, and we again rededicate ourselves not only in the struggle to emancipate other territories in Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it's linked to the total liberation of the African continent. Let us now, fellow Ghanaians, let us now ask for God's blessing. And for only 2 seconds, in your thousands and millions, I want to ask you to pause only for 1 minute and give thanks to Almighty God for having led us through obstacles, difficulties, imprisonment, hardship, and suffering that brought us to the end of our trouble today. 1 minute silence.
Democracy, democracy. Oh, Ghana boy, send it so
Africa Media 24/7.
Brothers in a frustration. Now I some accommodation I had to wait. Stay fast in human neck. Oliga come big factors. This how I'm gonna
The best online radio in Dallas Fort Worth. Africa Media 24/7.
Politics of corporate power. Pretending the pain PCCA. Never woman got one. Nemo boy fungwa. Gamba munu mapani rap. Sorry, I could take a scene bluff wakasia. I'm going on employment. Employees is walking down so Sanya democracy. Yeah, democracy. Oh, Jarish, Ghana boy. Sit and Nicola. Saluta. Democracy. I'm a player. I'm progressing. Democracy. I'm a there's enough frustration. Now I was some accommodation I had to wait. State farms, human neck. Oliga come big factories. And so I'm canneries. State corporation. Commander sugar factories. Yes, see, and only back. And who bunny a good send you make playment. Come for bunny, see your mind, boy. Amamoya, you be yes, about time go so bread. Amamoya, you be yes,
Hit point on Africa Media 247. This is Hit Point.
Africa Media 24/7.
Politics for the power. Pretty me the pay up CCA. That's what Obama don't cost. Nemo, you Kana mamu nyuma panina rabu. So Dakota kasi ane brofu akasi. Ambo nini na unemployment. Employees is what we are. Sanya democracy. Democracy. Oja she Ghana boy. Send it so many kumura. Saluta. Democracy, Amamoya, you be yes, I'm progressy, I also, you be yes, Democracy, Amamoya, you be yes, brothers in a frustration, now I was some accommodation, I had away, for young Kusia toy. Farms in your mango, Oliga come big factories, some gunneries, commercial shoe factories, state housing corporation, commander sugar factories, yes, see, penny bonny bar, down bonny a goose and you mention, maybe our unemployment. Come for bonny, see your mind, was so
The hottest sound on your
about that was so Democracy, Amamoya, you be yes, you be yes, Democracy, Amamoya, you be yes, Party politics for free power, pretty me pay up CCA. That's what Obama don't cost. Nemo, boy, fungua. Kana mamu nyuma panina rabu. Sorry, go takas the brofu akasi. Nini na unemployment. Employees is what the answer. Sanya democracy. Nemo, democracy. Oh, I wish she Ghana boy. Send it so dumb and Mora. Saluta. Democracy, Amamoya, yes, I'm progressy, I also, Democracy, Amamoya, yes, brothers in a frustration.
Africa Media 24/7.
Some accommodation, I had away. State farms in your maneco, Oliga come big factories. So,
Other phone I make, I would say, Mwakaba, Eba Africa Media 247. So, and then Ray was so for some more KODUA and the Major J. And then come what you can bet you in year and Dynamic Culture say. Today in Africa Media 247. Say and then come what you can move him ye.
Fort Worth, Africa Media 247.
for Bonnie, see your mind, was
The hottest sound on your
Of course, democracy, I'm way being party politics for every power. But the purpose. So we bring you today very nice discussion from our experts. Oh, who are well endowed in the language and the area.
The hot sound of your
Good morning to you wherever you are. My listeners from Australia, Dr. Paul Amotin, Dr. Eric Gacy, good morning to you. Good evening to you. Our listeners in Ghana, we wish you all the best. And good afternoon to you all over across Houston, Dallas, all over across United States. Of course, you're live. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube as well. This is your most authoritative political talk show here in Dallas, Texas. Today we'll be looking at the budget statement presented by the finance minister. We will also look into how subsidiary organizations will be used in terms of sensitizing the public in our quest for digitization of the economy in Ghana. You can be part of this conversation. So call a friend to tell a friend to lock their doors here on Africa Media 247. Africa State Farm in your group. It's order for payment. Nameba. State Housing Corporation, Commanders of Factories, SPC, Penny Pony Party, and the Down Bonnie, a good thing you mention. Be unemployment, come for Bonnie, see your money, was with the movie. For net and we bring you experts who are endowed in the subject area. Today we'll be looking into the budget statement presented by the finance minister, which was titled Obatampa Budget. Is budget Obatampa enough? Does it serve the interests of the general populace? Again, what is our quest as a developed country to develop our economy to a certain level? We look into the notion of digitize the economy. So to what extent we use subsidiary organizations in terms of sensitizing the public in our quest to digitize the economy of Ghana. We have experts who will be helping us in our discussion today. Today we have Mr. John Kwaodosin. Mr. Kwaodosin is a lecturer at the Sunyan Technical University. He's a PhD candidate currently in computer science, and he holds an MPhil in information technology, and he holds a BA in information technology. You can see how this person is, and these persons are going to help us in our discussions today. Also, we have our brother Bismarck Osei. And so Bismarck Osei is also a PhD at the University of Ghana, and he's an expert in monetary economics and a lecturer at the Zenith University. He's a lecturer at the Zenith University. Of course, we have our brother Paul Apia Konedu. Paul Apia Nadu is also a PhD candidate in sustainable development at the University of Brest, Italy, and he's a visiting doctoral research fellow at the Lagos Business School Sustainability Center. So we have on the line guests who are going to help us in our discussion today. Mr. Mbachoteminka. Chief, we are more Ghana, Coca-Cola, for Namika will say Africa Media 247. So now was Guswa Wuti Obatampa budget. The Obatampa budget to address the needs of the people who will be dealing with. We'll be looking into all these and analyze them as days to see how best this Obatampa budget seeks to address the needs of the young people in the country Ghana. So Obatampa budget a beboa on my Ghana. Now, is there any hope for it? Mr. Kodos, what do you mean? Many are dozen. What do you mean? Mr. Wait me on mute. Check it. What sound or no? Now on mute the sound. Because all that sound into me, muting into me. Tonka. For Namika was Africa Media 247. So good to UTA. Ghana line or yana sometimes hard drink akra. Nah, we will bring you all the guests who will be listening, helping us in our discussion. So don't flip your dials. Lock your dials here on Africa Media 247. Your live hit point. This is your most authoritative political talk show. And this has been your host, Samuel KODUA. Ofremi Chikonsua Mejo. So, anything that I will say about budget and be discuss about budget. No, anything no in free hand. Namika will say, for Dofubi, the catcher of Dofubi, so content Dofubi, not from the video, and to African Media 247. Now, let's discuss in the moon.
Power, to me the pain so upon Koso. Sorry, I could take a celebration for us here. I'm going in unemployment. Employees is work at the answer. Sonia democracy. Democracy. Oja Irish Ghana boy. Send it so Dominic. Democracy, I'm wrong, see I lost. Democracy, I'm rather than a frustration. Now I was some accommodation I am State farms,
Africa Media 24/7.
Polygon big factories, some canneries, commercial shoe factories, state housing corporation, command sugar factories. Yes, Democracy, I'm a moya. Democracy, I'm a moya.
Other for Yenya Bismarck, our line is a Bismarck in Pachotiminka. Hello, Bismarck.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, good evening.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good evening.
You just so. But so Timinka.
Yeah, I can hear you. First, it was the internet. Now, it looks quite okay. We are praying that to be very stable throughout.
All right. Okay. Namik, I would say we are back on live on African Media 247. Yeah, what experts and you know we're discussing the budget statement. So don't flip your dance here, Nameba. Yo, Bismarck.
Yeah, good evening, Samuel.
Yenua Paul ebe join here sound na yenua call Dawson so be join here network no hack kakra anything no na mo join here dey na your best no best obatampa budget na obatampa na what does the budget seek to address?
I think I have to use English or Chi. Is it English or Chi? Okay, thank you so much. Let me say good evening to everyone who's listening to us for such a privilege. As you said, the budget that was titled Obatampa is a budget that was titled Sustainable Entrepreneurial Nation, right? So if you look at what the budget, what it was read by the finance minister, I can say that it met my expectation by 60%. 40% didn't meet my expectation. So maybe probably let me start from where it didn't meet my expectation to where it met my expectation. I don't know whether you're okay with that presentation.
So
if you look at from where I told you that 60% it met my expectation, 40% didn't meet my expectation. Let me look at some of the things I've spoken about, which I've already said some of the things that didn't make the budget meet my expectation. One of them is the before the budget, most of us were crying. We have this perennial problem of this increase in petroleum product, and it became a big conundrum on the head of every Ghanaian. And before that, if you listen to most of the comment that was coming from each of these regions in the upper east, upper west, everywhere, a lot of people were looking up to the point that the government would have done something, or there would have been a reduction, something about pushing Ghanaians when it comes to the petroleum product. And it was very unfortunate. We never heard even a sentence from the finance minister concerning any adjustment downwards when it comes to the fuel prices. It's quite repugnant to see such development, because we thought this act actually defeats the tenets of trying to ameliorate the plight of Ghanaians. If the whole budget was read and no sentence of the budget was spoken about the reduction in petrol prices, for instance, I was expecting that this year, 2021 budget, remember that they imposed a levy, sanitation levy, they imposed energy levy on the petroleum product, right? And in one way or the other, I think it have played a very precipitating role and have exacerbated the price of petroleum product. And I was expecting that this budget, probably the sanitation levy could have gone off. We have not seen any improvement in sanitation here in Accra, everywhere in Kuma. I don't see any improvement in sanitation. So we thought this sanitation levy on the petroleum product would have gone away to give Ghanaians some sort of leverage and some cushion. But we didn't hear anything like that. And from that point, I thought it was quite preposterous to see that it didn't meet my expectation on that point. And a lot of Ghanaians out there was very disappointed. We defeat the tenants
of trying to ameliorate the plight of Ghanaians, and I think was quite defeated on that point. So on that point, I would say
Yeah.
that it didn't meet my expectation. Secondly, too,
Yo,
one of the things
Miss
also
Mark,
I
you
want
bet
to
me
talk.
to say ya kakra me. Said the bay. Why?
Okay, so you can see my full face. Is that? Is it okay now? Is it okay now?
Now it's okay now. It's okay now. Yes.
Okay. Another second point
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that also help me to what I said didn't make my expectation. I spoke about the issue of the fuel price. Another thing I want to speak about is that I was expecting that the Ghana card now we have been told that Ghana card almost about more than a couple of Ghanaians have it, millions of people Ghanaians have it. We're looking for it towards saying how this Ghana card can be impregnated in the scheme of things. For instance, maybe if you want to get passport, we check your background. If you don't pay your taxes, you will not get access to passport. Some these government services. Maybe you're going to register your business. You can check your background, or people registering new businesses, or people already in businesses. When it comes to DVLA, maybe I want to get my own DVLA, driving license, food and drug sport, and all those things. Maybe social intervention services, like these are PCHS, health insurance. Maybe the Ghana card would have been a good platform to impregnate these things in a scheme of things to help bridge this revenue gap trajectory that become a serious pandemonium for us. And to me, it was not well activated how we are able to identify that, yeah, the Ghana card have able to identify more non-taxpayers. But how are we going to activate that to help us increase our tax revenue? I don't think it was well activated in the budget. And to me, on that point, I would say that it didn't meet my expectation. Even still on the point of tax revenue mobilization, there is this fiscal electronic device act that was passed in 2018, and the idea of the act was to make sure that the fiscal electronic device act 2018, the idea was that VAT will be paid electronically so that it can be tracked. And these were measures that we thought the act have been passed. We expected that by them not be activated. As of now, these electronic devices are not there. We thought this budget will activate it so that we can see how this fiscal electronic device will help potentiate a level of tax revenue generation to bridge this gap we have been suffering from. Why we didn't hear anything like that. So to me, on that point, it didn't meet my expectation. On that point, we couldn't evaluate how can we make sure that these things work very well to bridge this gap we have been trajectory we have been suffering from. When it comes to also a lot of us have also been worried about our participation interest when it comes to oil and minerals. If we take our oil, for instance, Ghana makes 16% of our tax revenue, oil from revenue. Oil, when you take Ghana, for instance, 60%, we make only 16%. If we take country like Nigeria makes 52%, Botswana makes 65%. So what we have been talking about, the participation interest in these oil and these minerals have been a serious, quite monstrous for us. And I think we have this oil, you have all this good, but we're not getting enough money we need to cushion our budget. And we're looking for it to us, what were the best measures the government is going to take to make sure that we make this enough revenue from these aspects to boost our tax, boost our revenue generation to finance the budget. And to us, these things were not well activated. And I think it creates some sort of pernicious effect on how tax will be raised to help finance this huge expenditure the government planned to us spending in 2022. And these were very worrisome areas. Some of us, we expected that these things should have been well activated. Getting to another area, I would say that it didn't meet my expectation was the fiscal, the financial sector reforms. You remember that when this government came to power, they saw that there was a serious conundrum they have to deal with when it comes to the financial sector. There's so much banks that were operating that were in most scandalous deals, and one of the things they did, most of us we praised them for, was the financial sector reforms. And we were told that 21 billion cedis have been spent, right, to help clean up these banks to make sure that they become very robust. I think it was a very good initiative. Most of us, we think, was one of the nice initiatives this government took to save about 14 million deposits. They have their money in this bank account. But so far, let me tell you, they spent 21 billion cedis. How much have been retrieved from these bank officials, MDs, that involved themselves in this scandalous deal? Last time when they spoke to the governor said the amount they have retrieved is even less than 1 billion. We have spent 21 billion. We have retrieved less than 1 billion. And we think by now we're able to tell X what's the roadmap to help us retrieve this money. Because this all comes back to our debt, and we are not seeing any proper policies being put down, any proper strategies to help effectuate. They tell us that these monies and these issues are in court, but I think by now the government would have set up a separate court to deal with this issue to fast track it. So even though this money has been spent to bring back to make these banks perform very well, you look at the capital adequacy ratio, the core liquid asset to short-term liability, the cost-to-income ratio, and the capital adequacy ratio shows that the banks have bounced very well. But the point is, what were the measures that have been put down to make sure that this money will be retrieved? The budget couldn't activate it very well for us. It is in court, but I think it's not enough because we expected a separate tribunal to be set up to deal with how to retrieve this money. And another thing I've suspected that was not well activated.
Bismarck, before you come to the next point, I think our brother Paul has joined us. Paul, can you hear me? Paul is muted. Paul, unmute your mic. Paul, unmute your mic. Okay. Enya Dawson. Enya Dawson. Dawson.
So the question you asked me, you were asking me about my perception, my whole opinion about the budget. I started from the things that was nowhere activated in the budget, that was not activated in the budget. I think in my opinion, it didn't meet my expectation on that point. So I started from where the things that didn't meet my expectation, then I moved to things that met my expectation. I spoke about the budget failed to address the issue of increase in petroleum price. I spoke about the budget failed to tell us how the Ghana card can be impregnated in a scheme of things to make sure we raise enough revenue. I spoke about how was the Fiscal Electronic Device Act, it wasn't well activated to help us raise revenue. I spoke about how do we increase our participating interest in oil and gold so that we raise enough money. Also, I spoke about how do we retrieve the 21 billion that was spent in the financial sector reforms. There were no well-thought plan to help us retrieve the money.
Right.
And I spoke about it. The fourth point I want to speak about is the issue of our population control. I think this year the census came out, and now we have been told that Ghana is 30.8 million people. In most African countries, most world, the issue of population control have not been to an advantage because population control, because it have not been matched with productivity, it have not been matched with tax revenue mobilization, it have not been matched with radical knowledge production. Population growth in most part of the country
Paul, what you got? Paul. And networky high kakra na me best market so I talk kakra na obesam for na make
quite sort of a pandemonium to most of us. And to me, this budget, I was thinking that maybe
network no I drink kakra and net
the issue of population growth has become a serious pandemonium. Now we are 30.8 million people. Right. 4 or 5 years that will be 35 million people. And the population growth does not match with productivity, does not match with tax revenue generation, does not match with radical knowledge productivity that will help to create the precious effect on the economy. And so I was expecting that maybe it would have been government incentives to subsidize contraceptive for people from poor homes, government measures to cap social intervention policies like free chairs for your first 4 children, free maternal care for your first 4 children, and those things. And these things were not activated. And B, I think
Hello?
that was not quite propitious for me.
Yeah, Sammy. Yeah, I'm doing.
Yo, like Bacho to us and I say, poor Abba. I feel the chinning. I'm muting now.
So Paul should talk.
No,
so I should do what? I should say Paul is talking, or I should talk.
Yeah, I talk. Maybe to ask mommy.
I should go on.
Yes.
So I spoke about before that. I said that I was expecting the budget to tell us government incentive to control population. Maybe government will give incentives to maybe contraceptive will be subsidized or will make free for people from poor home. Our population now is 30.8 and it's very worrisome. This population growth have not been matched with productivity, have not been matched with tax revenue mobilization, have not been matched with radical knowledge production, and therefore the increase in population growth is also a big problem for us. So I talk about 4 things I think it didn't meet the expectation. I was expecting that maybe government will cap these social intervention policies like free SHS, first 4 children, or free maternal care, because these policies have the tendency of increasing our population, and the budget was not worried about the population growth. And I think these areas I'm talking about was some of the worried areas I was expecting the budget to activate, and I think it was not well activated. So to me, on that point, I would say that 40% aspect of the budget didn't meet my expectation, and I think I've itemized on the increase in population, increase in petroleum price. I itemized on where Ghana can be used by the GRA to help make sure for the entire level of tax revenue mobilization.
All right.
Talk about retrieving money with the financial sector reforms, the 21 billion being spent, and also the population control. There were no government incentives to control population.
All right. Kabasa bounce na Paul. So Paul.
Hello, David. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Obatampa budget. What's your general impression of it?
Okay. Just as Bismarck was saying, there are some aspects of the budget which are very good and welcoming, but there are other aspects where I think we could have looked at things differently, especially when it comes to managing our high and rising public expenditure, which is clearly getting out of hand. From the budget, we heard that as at the third quarter, the end of the September, our public debt had risen to 341 billion Ghana cedis, which is about 77.8% of GDP, or debt to GDP ratio of 77.8%, which is clearly getting out of hand. It is estimated that by the close of this year, most likely the debt to GDP ratio will hit 80%. And Ghana is clearly becoming a HIPIC country, which can no more go to HIPIC because our debts cannot be forgiven for the second time. So from the expenditure side, I expected government to take very practical measures to reduce unproductive consumption expenditures. If you look at the 2021 budget, we estimated to spend 113 billion Ghana cedis. That was the estimated expenditure against revenues of 72 billion Ghana cedis. So we had a projected deficit of about 11%. But if you look at how we are going, it is very clear that the deficit, the actual outturn will probably be more than the 11% that we projected, because by the third quarter, I think we are hitting a deficit of about 13%, which is clearly going to add up to our debt stock, which is already getting out of hand. So from the expenditure side, I expected government to take critical measures. We are in an emergency situation, and an emergency situation calls for emergency measures to be able to arrest the high and rising public expenditures. And I think consumption expenditures, which are not productive, which do not add to the capacity of the economy to generate more returns in the future to be able to pay back these debts. I mean, that has been the bane of our fiscal situation. And I think I didn't hear much in terms of measures to reduce.
Paul, can you
hear me?
Why? Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. My phone is on charge. So, yeah. So, from the expenditure side, like I'm saying, I didn't hear practical measures to cut back on unproductive consumption expenditures. Now, if you look at the 2021 outturn, by the third quarter, interest payments, which was estimated at 35 billion, plus the wage bill, which is about 31 billion, was more than the two items put together, was about 103% of the revenue that we realized by the third quarter. Interest payments and the wage bill amounted to about 48 billion Ghana cedis. No, our revenues amounted to 48 billion Ghana cedis, but interest payments and the wage bill amounted to about 51 billion Ghana cedis. So what it means is that our revenues were not even enough to pay interest and the wage bill. So what it means is that government had to borrow even to pay part of the wage bill, which is really not acceptable. So what it then means is that for any infrastructure that we are building or any long-term investments we are making, we have to borrow. And this means that clearly the situation is getting out of hand. And that is why I'm saying I expected government to take practical measures to be able to curtail our unproductive government expenditures. Recently, we heard the president chartering private jets for some of his trips and all that. I think some of these expenditures can be avoided. We still have departments, government agencies, ministries holding retreats, holding forums and all that in hotel conference rooms and all that. These things can be avoided. These expenses do not add to the capacity of the economy, but they unnecessarily add up to our high and rising debt. So these things can be clearly avoided. Now, on the expenditure side, I think when it comes to infrastructure or investments, we still have to spend. And that is why I do not agree with people who are saying they expected government to cut back on spending. We all know what COVID did to the economy. So this is a time to spend into the economy to be able to expand our productive capacity, to get us back onto the
Paul, I know, article. Benchmark, what?
Yeah. Hey, please, I can hear you. Yeah, please, I can hear you.
Government approach to generate revenue in terms of taxing Momo and TN money transfer. Yeah, is it not a lazy approach that the government is using in terms of generating revenue, or is there any other ways that the government can use in terms of generating revenue? Because if you look at what Paul was saying, reckless expenditure by the government has not been looked into. So if we are supposed to be disciplined in our fiscal spending or our money spending, then of course we have to look into how the government expenditure is all about. So is it not a lazy approach, government using this money transfer by taxing them in terms of getting revenue?
Okay, thank you so much. You spoke about the expenditure. First, let me talk about it. Is it a lazy approach? It's not a lazy approach. And why is it not a lazy approach? We only say it's a lazy approach when the government have not taken that measures to expand the tax base, right? And that's why you can say that yes, this is basically a lazy approach and it's very repugnant approach. But I think in the budget, some measures were being taken to expand the tax base. If that was not well activated in the budget, then you're right to say it's a lazy approach, right? So it's not a lazy approach because there are measures to increase the tax. What are some of the measures? One of them, the Ghana card have able to identify about additional about 4 million people who are not paying tax. What again? The government saying the tax exemption bill, tax exemption, that will make you lose a lot of money. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Minia Jones join it or the force. I think now we do the NATO African Media 27, and we are looking into the budget for 2022 that was presented by the finance minister according to the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. We have our experts here who are helping us into dealing with what really this budget statement is all about. On the line, we have our brother John Kwao Dawson, who is a lecturer at Spanish Technical University. He's a PhD candidate in computer science. He's also an holder in information technology. And Mr. Bismarck Osei is also a PhD candidate at the University of Legon. He is an expert in military economics and lecturer at the Zenith University College. Paul Apia KODUA is also a PhD candidate in social development at the University of Brescia. He's a visiting doctoral research fellow at the Lagos Business School Sustainability Center. They are helping us in dealing with what the budget statement is all about. So, Bismarck, make your point,
Yeah.
Real quick. Na any adults in some room said they Paul the point now no making up.
Okay, let me do it very quick. So you asked me, is the taxing of the electronic transaction levy is a lazy approach of mobilizing taxes? I said that I would not classify as a lazy approach. You will say it's a lazy approach where the budget didn't take measures to increase our tax base, right? That's where you say that is a lazy approach. The point as to cutting down our taxes, fine. We have to cut down. The point of cutting down our expenditures, there's no two ways. It's very monstrous for us. We have to cut down these unnecessary expenditures on the part of government.
Exactly.
Why am I saying it's not a lazy approach? The budget activated some of the ways we can increase our tax base, right? One of them, the finance minister said that the property tax, now the GRA is going to team up with the MMDAs to have the common platform for property tax collection. And to us, it's one way to increase our tax base. When it comes to the Ghana card too, have been introduced, and the Ghana card have been able to identify people who have not been taxpayers, and we have been told additional 4 million people have been identified. Now the point is, how are we going to make sure we effectuate our strategies to make sure we mobilize the money? That's the next point we talk about. The tax exemption bill also have been passed. It's going to be passed in 2022 to also that reduce tax exemptions. That makes them lose the revenue. So on that target, you can say that measures have been put down to increase our tax base. But the point is, I think the 1.7 is too high, right? There's a need to find a way of trying to bridge the revenue gap trajectory over the period. And one of the vibrant way the government can make that money is the mobile money transactions. As of June 2022, 2021, mobile money transaction alone was above that of check by 232 billion cedis. That tells you there is a vibrant aspect of the economy. So if government wants to mobilize money, one of the best way you can look to mobilize is from that transaction. But the 1.7 is too high because you want to drive towards the cashless economy. You want to drive towards financial inclusion. And I think this will create some sort of beneficial effect towards this financial inclusion agenda. To me, I think 1% was okay. If you want to start 1% is okay. But the more money transaction is a very vibrant aspect of the economy you can tax. But the 1.7 will create some sort of beneficial effect towards the financial inclusion and then this cashless system economy will drive. That's my problem.
Okay. Bismarck, for Anusipena, Dawson. But what in Kabim? John.
Hello. Yeah.
John.
A bit screechy.
Yes. Your general impression about Batam project.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity you've given me. I would like to acknowledge the presence of my brothers, Bismarck Osei and then Paul KODUA. Thank you very, very much. Host, I think that the budget that was presented by the finance minister met me at a point where I was jubilating. And it met my expectation because it has been a worrying point for me where a lot of youth are still struggling to find their way through. So when the finance minister made it clear that they are coming out to, they are creating 1 million jobs through the You Start project or program, I was confused. And I've gotten a lot of ideas which I will add on to it to make it to be able to employ 2 million in a bar. So if you ask me my perception, that is where I'll put it for now.
All right. Okay.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Namika will say, you know, yeah, called Dawson, information technology. If issues relating to digitization of the economy. He has been a very nice piece of which we'll be discussing today.
Hello?
Yeah, me. Call me John me tonka. Hello, John. Network in the highway. Many are best back in Vachotominka.
Yeah, please, I can hear you.
Yeah. I don't know. Uncle, yesterday, John, Paul, the 80 here. Maybe I want to. Okay.
John is still on. No. John is still on, but I can't hear you. John, yeah. I've seen him. It's live here. Paul is gone.
But I can't hear.
But John Dawson is still.
I can't hear him. John. Okay. Also, Minia and Bismarck, and Bachelor to us, John Bar. Yeah, didn't be. It's now a lazy man approach and the African home. It's just mommy.
You before that you were asking me, is this electronic transaction levy of 1.7? Is it a lazy approach of trying to mobilize money? And I said that, in my opinion, I don't think it's a lazy approach. Why? I said that why is it not a lazy approach? Yeah, you only say it's a lazy
I think you have to admit me in.
Provision our tax base, and so
all right.
The budget didn't make any provision towards finding our tax base.
Hello.
Almost back. Basement hold mammy kakra. John, now the point to be develop mommy.
Yes.
Now F1 is mommy.
Yes, I was making the point that the budget met me at an expectation where I had the finance minister proposing that they're going to create 1 million jobs through the use of the You Start program. And I was saying that so enthused because when I hear unemployment rate is high and the likes, it pleased me. So now that the government, in its wisdom, has been able to raise the concern of coming out with an entrepreneurial programs, which will be able to engage a lot of youth who are ready to enter it.
All right. You are so on for that. Paul, about your team. Paul. Paul Lana as article. 80. Mr. Dawson, do you think this is feasible? And how we going to get the funding for that? Mr. Dawson, John. Bismarck. Bismarck.
Hello.
Bismarck. Where about Jotimika?
I'm back. I'm here.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Now, Dawson said, Dawson, you think
Hello?
it is feasible for the government to achieve that?
Are you asking me? Are you asking me? Should I go on?
Now, Sir John said whether where he was enthused about the budget, whether it is feasible for us to achieve it. But Paul,
I think Dawson is gone.
Johnson is on. Paul Swaba. Paul Mbachot. Hello, Paul. 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 Paul Mbachot.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, Metonka.
Yes. Before the line to call you now is point.
Metonka.
One no NC. Ain't you know finishing my.
Yeah, Metonka, I can hear you. Sammy?
Yes.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right. Now, so go on. Metonka. You okay? Now we establish a point. You know, finish your point now. We're making the mommy answer.
So I was making the point that clearly we need to prudently manage our expenditures, especially consumption expenditures. Some of the expenditures that we've been making are needless. Yeah.
Mommy.
He's gone.
And then to a new wire. Bismarck. With the Kafra Yadi and then you made the nations at 18 as my.
So thank you so much. I think Mr. John was talking about the 1 million job initiative. I think it's very quite propitious to see that the government has initiative to help build a sustainable entrepreneurial nation. Government want to work towards renewing this youth, their resourcefulness and entrepreneurial ability, so that some of these youth can become business monger and business magnet. I think this is very appropriate for government to take such initiative. But the question you asked, is it very feasible to create 1 million jobs? I am afraid I don't see it being possible to create 1 million jobs. Why am I saying that? If you look at the whole plan, the whole initiative, the government is supposed to spend 3 billion cities for the next 3 years. Government is spending 10 billion cities. Government is spending 10 billion cities for 3 years to finance this very laudable initiative. 3 billion cities is from government, 2 billion cities is from development partners, 5 billion cities is from banks. And so that the 10 billion government is spending, about 7 billion is from development partners and banks. And you know very well that you cannot put your hopes so much on money that comes from development partners. You cannot put your hopes so much on money that comes from banks. But they have their own agenda, they have their own framework where they try to effectuate their own strategies for the year. So the 10 billion cities government is spending for the next 3 years. I want every Ghanaian, every you who is listening to us to put his hope on the 3 billion cities from government. Once it's government initiative, government will play all the momentous role to make sure that the money is available. So if you want to say very, very objectively, I would say that since we cannot get it's not possible to get all the 10 billion cities for the next 3 years. I don't see 1 billion jobs being 1 million jobs being created every year. I am expecting somewhere 300,000, 400,000 that can be created. That one I can bet my hat for it, because the 10 billion cities, I don't see the possibility of government realizing all the 10 billion cities. And to me, you remember in the media budget, they said that there were we're going to create 1 million jobs. We call it the Youth Blank Initiative. Youth Blank. Remember the media, we did a review over here, and no job was created. Right? So most of us, we are looking at this not be a mere rhetorical flourish. It is something that is so dear to the heart of government, where government wants a patriotic plan. I don't believe 1 million jobs can be created, but I believe 300, 400,000 jobs can be created every year. Even in the face of that, I think it's quite laudable for us to see such job being created. It's better than not creating any job. So to me, it's a good time for us to have such initiative. The African Container Free Agreement is here. The common market, the custom union is there. That will allow for free movement of goods and services. How do we make sure we leverage on this so that it become quite propitious for us as youth? To me, it's time for the youth to take advantage of this initiative. Government to channel all his synergies towards operationalize this initiative. The youth who get access to this money, I want to see that this money will be channeled to rare sectors of the economy that will have a radiating effect on the economy. In the area of agrochemicals, rice, fish production, pharmaceutical, aquaculture, silviculture, floriculture. These areas are very vibrant areas. I expect that these investments should go so that it will have that enormous effect on the economy. To me, I would say that I don't believe in 1 million jobs that can be created. The government cannot get all the 10 billion cities in the next 3 years. Government can rely on the money from him, the 3 billion cities, the 10 billion cities. I don't believe development partners, banks cannot be relied on. So I don't believe the 1 million jobs can be created. I believe maybe 400,000, 300,000 can be created every year. Even in the face of that, I don't think it's bad. It's better. It's very appropriate to have that, to create that job for the youth.
Okay. Bismarck, Mr. Dawson, Mr. Dawson, but Otemenka.
Yes, Mr.
All right. Yatia says when you say now or propose to be FR the youth curtailing the youth employment situation again, in as much as we want to grow the economy, you have written a very nice piece in terms of digitizing the economy, and you argue that we can use subsidiary organizations in terms of sensitizing the public in digitizing the economy. What is it? What's the main goal? What are you driving at?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity again. I think when we look at civilization has transcended 3 different pillars. We started from the agriculture era, we moved on to the industrial era, then we are in the digital era. Yes, and that is where Ghana has reached now, where we are moving from the paper environment to the paperless environment. So if you look at the piece, I indicated that the government has worked in several areas, like the e-passport, the DVLA, the health insurance. Now the government has also proposed that of the e-health and pharmacy. But all these that we've been talking about, it appears that the citizenry are not getting a firm grip of it. I can confirm that if you come down to the locals and you ask them, which codes can you be able to, short code can you even use to be able to renew or register your health insurance, people are adamant about it. People still rush to the health insurance offices to renew or to register. If you go to the passport unit, the same thing happens. If you go to electricity, instead of buying credit from your home via your phone, people still rush to the electricity offices to be purchase that. So this implies that the government in its ways is trying to inculcate or allow us to imbibe the digitalization system into us. But people are not really aware of it. So I am of the view that there are a lot of subsidiary organizations in Ghana which has gotten as part of its core mandate educating people, helping to enshrine or making people aware of the policies that the government is raising, in helping to ensure the smooth running and then morals of the people in the country. So if you look at the piece, I brought about 4 or 5 different subsidiary organizations. I talked about one, NCC. Their core mandate is to educate, to make people aware, the citizenry aware of the innovations that the government is bringing to ensure that the life of the people becomes smooth without any hindrance. But my brother, let's look at this. What are they doing? So I was suggesting that the government should be on them, make them aware. Where they are not resourced, the government in its wisdom should be able to resource them. 2, I talked about the NAPCO. Now they have been called back that they are going to give them jobs. When you come to NAPCO, one of the models, digitizing Ghana. Why is the government not employing them to be able to go around? What I was suggesting was that now every district can be zoned so that if we have NAPCO officers there, we can categorize them. This group, you are responsible for sensitizing people on how to use short code. This group, you are responsible for sensitizing people how to be able to purchase credit, electricity credit online. These people, you are responsible for educating or sensitizing people on how they'll be able to validate even the insurance that our vehicles are using. Come to that of the service, the National Service Scheme. Now people are posted into offices where they become irrelevant. Because I can attest to it. A lot of them goes to these offices and they have no work doing. But when we come to technology, the people who have adequate knowledge in the field of technology is the National Service people. Because I can say that they've gotten higher level of education. So through the use of the phone, when it comes to the use of the phone, they have upper hand or upper knowledge. So I was suggesting to the government that now the National Service people, when you are posted to a region, the region we have districts. Within the districts, we have constituencies. So why are we not using these people to be able to disseminate information? Now that the government is talking about this e-transaction, have you seen the brouhaha that is arising out of this? All boils down to the point that people have not gotten a grip of what the government really wants to do. So with this subsidiary of NADMO, let's NADMO, go to their page, their website, as all mandate. We have where they are responsible for teaching the people how to be able to live well, become moral, and being able to live well in the society using technology is part of it. So if there is no problem where NADMO is going, the officers still be in the office and they are paid. Is that not it? And here,
John,
okay, it's not an extra duty which the government is going to give them, but it is enshrined in their core objectives. Appealing to the government that the government should use subsidiary organizations and let the people, it should go to the ground and educate the people for them to understand what the digitization is all about. If this had happened, this e-transaction problem we are facing wouldn't have been a problem at all.
All right. It wouldn't have been a problem at all. The phone maker say you are live on Africa 247. This is Hit Point in Wasugusu Awuti. About 3:12 p.m. That's important. Hanum Yebreno ya be na Bismarck. So Bismarck. Now look, in terms of digitizing the economy I think that is the best way to go for a country to grow. Look, for instance, I can sit in my comfort zone here in my room and open an account. I don't have to join the queue. I don't have to do anything. Very flexible and easy. It's the way to go as a nation. Is it not something that we need to embrace?
Oh, of course. I mean, thank you so much. I think you said it rightly. Digitization all over the world. You are in the States. You see, it played a tremendous role towards driving the national group agenda, and also it helped improve the level of economic activity. It saves time. And you are in the US, you know it already. A lot of people doesn't even have to spend time going to banks and doing all those stuff because it saves time. And that time you're going to spend doing these things, you can channel that time to work and put the level of GDP. As Mr. Dawson said, it's right. That's the agenda. And this, if one of the things you can credit this government for, if you don't like this government, one you can credit them for from the office of Baumien's office, this digitization agenda of this government is one of the best things they have ever done for us. That everything has to be done to digitize, save time, and also time can be used to boost the GDP. And that is one of the momentous role this government have played. And when they leave power, it will live on the minds of everyone. But having said that, as we all saying that we cannot be oblivious of the fact that most of people are not aware of these government digital agenda. For instance, about that if people want money interoperability, say you never heard about it. Say you doesn't know. This can be dead since 2016. When it comes to electronic passports, when it comes to this the issue of DVLA, when it comes to even land registration, they are bringing this digital land registration. When it comes to other sectors too, this government, from office of Baumia, they have done very well trying to digitize these areas. But a lot of people are not aware. So, as Mr. Dawson rightly said, National Commission for Civic Education is their job. I don't want to say even he said they are not. They are resource. They give them budget every year. So the issue of not being resourced is not even the issue here. It's not an issue of they don't have a conundrum of issue of not being resourced. They have the issue of being resourced. They are the best institution that will serve as a silver bullet when it comes to being the right instrumentality, when it comes to making sure that people get educated. The National Commission for Civic Education should be up and be doing, and they should be pushed to work. But every year the government gives them a budget to work. And that money, let's ask them, where does the money go to? They should be pushed to educate the people. Again, the Ministry of Communication, Ministry of Information also have a job to play. They have a momentous role to play. Their job is to make sure that they partner with the MMCDAs to make sure that down there, these things are being educated. The MMDAs also through the Ministry of Communication, Employment, all these institutions have a role to play down on the route. The Assembly Maintenance Committee to make people aware that this is the drive we want to move to. And any good economy, that means business, any good economy that reach the pinnacle of development, rise on the back of digitization. And that's where we want to be. The office of the Vice President, for instance, these initiatives are initiated from the office of Vice President. I expect him to do a lot of adverts on national TV. We saw that during President Kufuor's time, Presidential Special Initiative from President Kufuor was an initiative from the office of the President. We saw a lot of adverts on television. Right, to see the same thing they have been doing for the digital poverty address, but then they have to go beyond the poverty address and do other things government have done, so that people will not be oblivious about these. The government wants to drive stores. To be NABCO, what is the essence of NABCO? To help us collect property tax, to help educate people on these digital addressing systems, to educate people on digital drive. That's one of the models. As so Mr. Johnson said it rightly, this is how people should be used. You should not go and sit down and be doing the ordinary work people are doing and become quite irrelevant. Again, to the national service, he said about national service, the National Youth Authority, the NYA, they have the youth to themselves. These are all institutions, subsidiary institutions, that they should not allow them to be sitting in the office, taking our money and doing no work. They have to go down the street, they go down there and make sure people are aware of this good agenda of this government that will drive it. And that's the best way to go. That will serve as one of the best instrumentalities towards trying to move towards sustainable growth trajectory over the period.
Wonderful. Bismarck, Mr. John Asaba, and so Dawson, what do you mean?
Yes, me too.
Yo, yeah, Beno, yeah, be, so in totality, what is the way forward as a country in terms of moving or drive the economy to a level that we seek to achieve?
Yes, thank you very much. I think the way forward is helping block a lot of loopholes that is drain or that drains the economy. One, we are going to curb corruption. When we go digital, nobody is going to pay money to you physically. You'll be able to deposit it somewhere and later use it for whatever you want to use it. It's going to help us meet at a higher level with the international community.
Right.
Are you with me? Yes.
Yes.
So I am if the country goes digital, now look at e-commerce. That is one foundation which I want to technological.
Yeah, true. Paul.
Okay.
The internet not give me home.
With the technology,
Paul.
what the foundation to? Hello.
Hello, Paul. Miriam Dawson, but that's about Kakramami. Hello, Paul.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me? Miriam Paul, but what can
you hear me?
Yeah, it's muted. Paul is muted.
Yes, I can hear you now. I can
you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. I think Mr. John was speaking.
Yes, Mr. John was speaking. Now background here, may I let you?
Okay. Thank you. I was muted.
Mr. John, for one, see that poem them. John.
Yeah, Johnson is gone. I think we have to allow Paul.
Okay, Paul. Mommy.
Okay. So, like I was saying, I think from the expenditure side, we clearly have to cut certain unnecessary expenditures to make sure that whatever we are putting into the economy is something that will add up to the capacity of the economy in terms of developing local productive capacity, which will help to be able to generate more taxes in the future to pay back the debts that we are taking now. Then from the revenue side, I think aside the fact that we are not able to manage our expenditures, it has been very difficult to mobilize taxes, especially from the informal sector. And if you look at the over 13 million Ghanaians that are working and that are supposed to pay taxes, now we have just about 2.4 million that are paying taxes. And most of these people are in the formal sector. So it is very important for us to reach out to the informal sector. And that is why I was very happy when the Minister of Finance proposed that we are now going to focus on property taxes. I think it is one area that has a huge potential to add up to our tax revenues. The real estate sector is booming, and I think it's about time we design measures to be able to reach out to them. Now we have the property addressing system. With that, I think we can be able to identify the properties. We need to develop a system to value these properties to be able to determine how much each property owner is supposed to pay in terms of property taxes. Then I think rent taxes is one other area that we should also focus on. If we look at Accra now, a one-bedroom self-contained now in an average area goes for about 500 Ghana cedis. People are taking a lot in terms of rent incomes, but they are not paying anything with regards to taxes. I think government has to look at that area. If we are even taking 5%, if a landlord takes 1,000 Ghana a month, as rent. What it means is that 50 Ghana is supposed to come to the government as tax. And I think there is a lot of money that the government can generate from that area. Then in terms of revenue, I think the e-tax is an innovative way of generating additional revenues. I mean, people have a lot of reservations about it in terms of it being counter.
Network na I dream papa po asatiko John na o make submission ana network netiko ye
Yes.
to aso yemfa dwumade nim
Now, on the part of creation of job, now someone was doubting if we will be able to create, government will be able to create 1 million jobs.
Right.
Yes, what I want to raise is that now there is this program I want to come out with, Technology Hub. This Technology Hub, because Ghana is going digital, I'm going to train people in the area of web design, database management, and e-commerce.
Right.
So now what is going to happen is that you have a shop. You have a shop. The gentleman comes to you. I have this product. I'll be able to design this for you, after which I will host it. If it's not about hosting it on the web, the person can add you to an e-commerce. Now go to the universities, what they are doing to be able to fund their education. The person goes to shops, take materials, take photos of materials, and now host it on e-commerce sites. And it is fetching them. All these things are ways that will be able to create employment. And that is going to employ in Sunyani here. And as I speak with you, I can boast about 500 people who have registered to be part of it.
Right.
A form of giving the people with skills. After they've applied the skills, is it a job that they'll be able to find? Because when you come to Sunyani here, there are a lot of shops that are managed manually. And if your shop is being managed manually in this era, you are behind the belt. Nobody will get to know whatever you have. There is one gentleman who has decided to do a project on comparing the petroleum prices in Sunyani and host it on an e-commerce platform. So what happens is that if you want to go and buy fuel, you only go to the site and then check out prices of fuel. So it is AK filling station, which has gotten the lowest price because the pricing of the same throughout. Some companies have theirs a bit lower than others. So the guy has taken this as a project, which he's going to do. Is it not a form of creating employment? As you visit, as people visit, at least in the course, you also be able to raise some funds out of it. So here, the government trying to push or move the country into digital economy, I think is in the right direction. And it's going to create a lot of jobs.
Oh, right.
Unless some of these mechanisms are not being
implemented. Brenna soon. See her na Kobe money last mission. Kobe's mark so no wasami up na the Jumadian Abbey. Paul, Pachoteminka. Paul. Hello.
Paul have to mute himself. He's
Paul,
muted. He's muted.
Okay, all right. Okay. Mark. Paul, then we'll close our mind to summarize it, what we have done today.
Okay, so thank you so much. One of the things I think that I heard in the budget that's very laudable for me was the finance minister said that January 2022 the development bank is coming on board. But they have about $800 million to start. I think one of the things that have been quite monstrous for investors to get long-term liquidity to invest. The development bank, which is coming as a policy bank, is come to create this wholesale financing. It's going to give the guarantee risk instruments for investors. The investors can get a long-term liquidity to invest in the economy. Because these commercial banks today, the investors, they give them short-term liquidities, the ADBs and other one, and that have not been so good for us to move the country to a long-term sustainable entrepreneurial nation. To me, we are hoping that the Development Bank of Ghana comes, which is going to be a policy bank, which is going to provide wholesale financing, which is going to provide this guarantee risk instrument. We're hoping that by 2022, when it comes, it's going to help provide this long-term liquidity for these investors to expand the economy. And also, it's going to play a momentum so when it comes to working towards obtaining the sustainable entrepreneurial nation, towards igniting the resourcefulness of people, and to creating jobs enough job for the people. And to talk about the digitization agenda, I think it's good. You should keep on. There should be enough education. It's a very good platform for us to jettison the issue of excessive corruption. It's a good platform for us to put into the level of economic activities and also to help people think differently in a way of digital activities so that they help increase the job. We are hoping that these things that was said in the budget will not just mere rhetoric, but something that will be evacuated to achieve the objectives.
Thank you. Paul, Mbacho, what do you mean? Waba? Paul, Mbacho,
Paul has muted himself.
Oh.
Sammy?
Yeah.
Paul has muted himself.
Okay. And then we yeah, the Jumadino Abbey next week. You been the same panel. You know, and say next week the same panel will come on our show, and then the network will be a bit better for us. Mr. Dawson, dear now catch what for na 1 minute. Thank you very much, Bismarck, for your time and energy for what you have done. And we are most grateful to you. And next week, we hope to have you on our show once again to deal with pertinent issues that are geared towards the development of our nation, Ghana. Mr. Dawson.
Yes, Minia, thank you very much for the opportunity. The government is in the right direction, trying to move the country from a paper environment to a paper-light environment. I will embrace my brothers, my sisters, my mothers, that they should also embrace it. But the onus is on the government to be able to come out with people at the ground root or at the lower level will be able to get a better understanding of whatever agenda that he's putting across. I wish you all the best.
All right. Thank you very much. Paul, Fanate, what do you mean? Paul. Thank you very much. Paul, Fanate, what do you mean? Paul and Timinka, or for yeah, the Jumadiano Abbey, and ye Bismarck. Mr. Bismarck say, and you come on, Mr. Bismarck or say a PhD candidate at the University of Legon, University of Ghana, Legon, an expert in monetary economics and speaks for it. And he is also a lecturer at the Zenith University. John Dawson. John, expert in information technology, is a PhD candidate in computer science, and he has written a piece we should pay particular attention to. We also had the opportunity to listen to Paul Apia Kunedu. Paul Apia Kunedu is a PhD candidate in sustainable development at the University of Brescia, Italy. He's also a visiting doctoral research fellow at the Lagos Business School Sustainability Center. But for that, what say? Yeah, that was what to say. We are brain now. We train yen na ni yen. I should train call. Na make I Himaju ba say good job. Good afternoon. Good job. So Hanson Abdul Khalid. Kahat. So I watch it live. In ya Daniel Block. And so I watch it live. I need Kwajo Amp and so watch it live. Yeah, that Mujina say munya bread na mo train yeah line and yeah mo na I hope we say it to get it to be much more better than what we have today. And dynamic say free and you are getting free if we say I don't hima job de ye mai and da chinjumadi ebe praying and it na make say or kwasiada do kwasiada na year 247 line a hot year anything at our so tier.